Good evening. I'm Scottsville Town Administrator Matt Lawless, and this is the Scottsville Architectural Review Board meeting for Thursday, February 4th, 2021. Thanks for joining us here. If you're watching this one in the future on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. This meeting is held in a hybrid format pursuant to Scottsville's Continuity of Government Ordinance. Most of the board members are going to be joining us on Zoom, but we hold the meeting here at Victory Hall, open to the public for anyone who wants to attend. And then the recordings are posted online afterwards for you to see as well. The local time here now is 6:50 p.m. and the meeting starts at 7 o'clock. So we'll start promptly once we assemble our quorum. If you want to skip ahead on the video recording by 10 minutes, that will get you to the start of the meeting. So I'm going to mute this microphone here now in the room and get everything set up. Thank you very much for tuning in. Evening, sir.
Hey, how are we doing?
All right. How are you this evening?
Doing pretty good, thanks. Doing pretty good.
Have a good couple of snow days?
Yeah, we got the city got one, county got one, and then two 2-hour delays for whatever a 2-hour delay means these days. What about Jen? What did they do in Nelson County?
Nelson had one traditional snow day and one work from home day.
Okay.
Because they're still fully virtual with their work.
Yeah. That's impressive that they've been able to sustain that. Actually,
they keep having 3-2 school board votes on it, and so it's anxiety inducing every month or two when they look at it again. But commend their discipline.
Yeah. And that they've been able to do it with, I know internet's not what it could be down there too. That's
muddling along. I'll be curious when they get their SOLs done, kind of what happened this year. But I like the summer school idea that's going around for everybody.
What's that?
Jen's expecting to work for most of the summer on some kind of remediation stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what we'll probably be doing something. I have no idea what summer school looks like for us. It'll probably be something similar. But yeah, we're still all virtual. I think in March we're going to do some pulling in small groups of students during the day. For the high school, it'll be the morning. Very targeted, small, like 100 kids in the building, probably max. That sort of thing.
Well, and Charlottesville's such a big school. There's plenty of physical space.
Oh yeah, you can spread out. Hey, Barbara. Can you hear me, Barbara?
Can now. Yes.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hello. Hey, Bob. Hello, Thomas.
Hello.
Keeping an eye on the waiting room is not too bad of an additional feature. Supervisor Price was telling me about her board meeting yesterday. She had a harassing interruption, which resulted in an FBI call in the morning.
Wow.
Not playing with disrupting government.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate. Yeah, I think the waiting room's a good idea. Yeah, it's a good sort of first line of, it doesn't keep anybody out, but it provides a little bit extra,
If we continue to have any trouble with it, what we can do is upgrade our Zoom subscription and go to what do they call them, Matt? Seminars, where you basically have a discussion panel, and all the rest of your participants are in a peanut gallery and don't have access to speaking or even being seen unless the moderator brings them up and puts them on the panel. So you can sort of have participants raise their hand and be brought up, promoted to the panel to speak, and then demoted back to the gallery when they're done.
Yeah.
And everybody else.
That should have been like part of the federal CARES funding.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Good Zoom subscription. Yeah, that sounds like a great feature.
Yeah, that's how the JMRL board handles all of theirs, because they have a lot of staff who log in and a lot of the public. So you only ever see the, whatever it is, 8 or 10 people who are in the panel
so
at
you
once.
also don't see them.
Exactly. Yeah. So you just see those 10 people up on your screen, and then you can open up I think we still have it. Yeah. Down at the bottom, we have participants.
Right.
And so in there, you can see absolutely everybody who's on the meeting.
Right.
But you only get video from the panelists.
Yeah. That's a very cool feature.
Fellows, may I ask a question?
Please.
Are we expecting a quorum, anticipating a quorum?
I
this
think
evening?
so. Tyler texted me earlier this afternoon to say that he was probably not going to be here this evening, but that's the only one that I have heard of.
Okay.
In fact, we have a quorum now, technically, don't we?
Bob's on, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
the three of
nice.
us, okay. The reason I ask is I may have to be taken from the call fairly suddenly. I'm hoping not, but I'm just kind of trying to make you aware of that, okay?
Absolutely. Thank
Thanks.
you. If Aaron gets here, we'll have no concerns at all. If you do have to move, we can postpone and reschedule at the board's convenience.
Okay, we'll get as much done. I'm hoping not to be interrupted, but if I am,
Of course.
I apologize.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah. Thank you for the heads up. I would like to wait. At what time is it? It's like 7.
Just 1 minute past.
Yeah, I'd like to wait a couple minutes. See if Aaron does join us this evening.
The Barnetts are here with us on their application.
Hi.
Hello?
Roof looks great.
Oh, there's Aaron in the waiting room.
Okay. Oh, you absolutely could. You absolutely could. Sure thing. Absolutely.
All right. Is Aaron in the meeting? Hello,
Yes,
Aaron.
Aaron's here with us.
Okay, cool. Then we have more than a quorum, so let's get started. Welcome everybody to the February meeting of the Scottsville ARB. It's nice to see everyone this evening. So let's start here with the agenda. We've got our quorum. Call to order. Yes, I like the agenda the way it is. I think we're good here. Does anyone have anything that needs to be added? I'm good with what we have here tonight. Okay. Then I guess we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Matt, can you try to unmute Bob?
Oh,
Oh wait, I just asked him, can I do it?
I made you co-host, yes.
Okay. Well, I can ask to unmute. Can I do more than that?
Yep, there he is.
Okay, sweet. Hi, Bob. Are you out there, Bob?
We see your name.
Well, I'll count him as present for the time being, and I think that motion will pass on the majority.
Okay. We've got
Barbara, if you need to leave, we will probably want to pause and establish that Bob is here with us before we continue
Okay.
with that as our quorum.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
good. Thank you. All right. Let's take care of the minutes here. If everyone's had a chance to look over the minutes for December and January, we'll just need a motion to approve those.
I move to approve both December and January's meeting minutes.
I second that.
Thank you, Aaron. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, since the Barnetts are here, we're going to take their business first, as is customary of the ARB, to take our applicants first in the order of things. So it's nice to see you both. All right, so we've got a Windows CLA. So make sure ARB members, you have this pulled up. And as is our purview here, we'll discuss the project. I'll leave it to the property owners, the applicants, to sort of discuss their project. I'll turn it over to the ARB for questions, and then the board can discuss, and then we can decide to approve or ask for more information or what have you. But don't want to feel like you have to make a decision tonight, but we can if we have enough information. So I'll turn it over to Barnetts.
Okay.
on the lady that we have in apartment 358 Upper,
Matt, can you get a microphone a little closer?
as a result, Albemarle County pays about 7/8 of her rent every month. And as a result of that, they come out once a year and inspect the apartment. So the gentleman came out over a month ago. He said the windows, the cords on the windows in the bedrooms were broken. And if there was a fire in the back of the building, Mrs. Bell could not get out of the apartment. And we either had to replace the windows or have them repaired. Since that building was built in 1840, those are probably the original windows. And we're applying to the ARB to approve the new windows from window, I think you have the
Yes.
Window Depot, I'm sorry. And I started off with Lowe's, and then they really messed up, and we lost a lot of valuable time, and I canceled that order. And I can call the gentleman from Window Depot tomorrow, and if the ARB approves it, if they don't, then I can cancel the order. And so that's the reason. I think Matt has most of the material.
We did send the paperwork around, and Mr. Barnett also brought this evening the documentation from the Albemarle County Housing Office, which describes the need to install windows which stay up when opened. It can't be a heavy window that falls back down when it's opened. The product information that you've got, you have a quote for the model Provia Endure premium window, and then some information about the company. But I'm not very clear on what kind of window the Provia Endure is. Can you tell us about what that window is?
Yes, it's a vinyl door with the grids on there, very similar to the grids that are currently on the building. And there's two different kinds of windows. So one is 6/6, and the other one is, I think, 9/6. On that, I think you have the information on that. So one of the windows, one of the three is, I think, it's 6/6, and the other two are 9/6.
I can get a picture of it here real quick, just a moment.
Yeah. And how many windows are we looking to replace?
Sir,
3.
3. Okay.
3 windows.
And there's a dormer up above, but you're not touching that. Is that right?
I'm sorry.
There's a dormer up on the top floor.
Yes, no, the dormer has that's been repaired.
Okay.
Because that has the exhaust from either the shower, no, the dryer, I think,
Yes. Okay.
up there.
And you're right. The pane configuration is a little bit different. They're not all the same. One of them looks like it is a 9/6, and the others are different. Do you know why that is?
I don't know. I guess I was very surprised that they were not all 3 the same. And, they will install whichever way we want. I mean, if we want to do 6/6, or the ARB can tell me, or they can replace them like they are.
Okay.
So
Is it-
I have,
Go ahead, Erin, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question. Well, just for the sake of clarity, Larry, it's good to see you. And my question is, you're wanting to replace them either 9/6 or 6/6, not the design that's in the images in the packet. Is that correct?
No, not on the one up there by itself, which I want the.
Yeah, so like your picture on the Endura window doesn't have any dividers, but you're saying they can put in whatever dividers you want.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just a sample like that.
So but they can match whatever
Yeah.
style of dividers that we want. Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
And then my second question is, I guess for the rest of the board, where do we stand on vinyl wood? I know that we encourage wood, the use of wood windows for the sake of historic appropriateness, but I also know that we've talked about the possible use of vinyl if it is far enough away from the street that you can't really tell the difference. Do we have specific guidelines on that, or is that in the works?
I'm looking at the guidelines here under Windows, and the quote, the paragraph that stands out to me. I mean, when we look at historic buildings like this, sort of the guiding principle is replace the material that is most historically appropriate. So, but the other thing that comes up here on page 11 under rehabilitations, it reads, where original windows have deteriorated and improved thermal efficiency is required, double paned replacement windows that mimic the single paned originals in appearance may be appropriate. That's what it reads.
And here we have both a kind of a social services demand for the thermal efficiency, but also a safety requirement for smooth exit.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
the inspector doesn't care about the material on the windows. They just need it to work smoothly.
I had a choice of wood or vinyl, and the vinyl is more energy efficient.
Mhm.
I think the brochure says that. Then, and I think the ARB approved the vinyl windows for the Bruce building, which was built in 1832.
Mm-hmm.
The town's most historic building. Matt just moved out of apartment 2 on there, right, Matt?
Yes.
And those windows were vinyl, and they're thermal panes, which are now they're single pane, so they're much more energy efficient, and the tenant does pay the electric and the water in the building. The Albemarle County does not pay that.
Mm-hmm.
Will help her. This will help her.
Yeah, this will help her.
Yeah. Larry, just for my clarification, because I think the Bruce's windows were done before I was on the board. Do you remember when it was, like how long ago it was done? And where are the vinyl windows on that building? Are they on the second floor?
On the second floor, yeah.
And that one did not get the matching pattern of dividers. So they're big expanses of glass.
Yeah.
This would be a better proposal because it has the matching dividers.
Yeah.
I think the Bruce building project would have been better if it had had the matching dividers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the Bruce building window replacements were submitted to the ARB, and the ARB approved at that time the vinyl replacements.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay. Not privy to that information. Here's my concern, because we have tried to apply consistently a standard with regard to the historic buildings that have windows that are of architectural significance. And when folks have come to us with their COAs, and they have only provided estimates for vinyl windows and not for true divided light wooden windows replacements, we have asked them in the last several applications to also obtain a quote on wooden windows. This is a real dilemma for us because we completely appreciate the issue around the thermal, the superiority of heat and air insulation and the thermal qualities of the vinyl windows. But I guess what I'm saying and sharing with the rest of the board is about our concern for consistency, at least in terms of submitting information for approval.
Mm.
To my knowledge, at our last meeting, we had an individual who came forward with a building on Main Street, and we sent him back to get a quote for wooden windows. Am I correct on that?
That's
Yes.
right. And
The wood windows would have to be painted.
Would have to be painted.
Yeah, they have to.
Yes, they would. I know. And this is something that, it's not fun and it's time consuming and it's a maintenance issue. What we're doing is trying to reconcile the historic issue with the efficiency issue, and at the same time be consistent with all of the applicants. That's one of our biggest objectives, because there has been, unfortunately, periods of some inconsistency, and then that makes it very difficult for the ARB to move forward with credibility if we don't apply the same standard to everyone. And I invite the rest of my fellow board members to jump in here, because I'm not making a declaration. I'm
Yeah,
simply trying to share what has been our experience.
Yeah, windows are a sticky. They're just sticky.
It is sticky.
Because they do sort of, the historicity of the buildings and the feature, but at the same time, I totally get the efficiency thing. And I guess for me, and I guess this is really for the board itself, I don't know if we have really come to a consistent idea of how we want to apply these standards to windows. And we also haven't had that many applicants recently that we've approved for windows.
We've had 3. And, within the last 6 months, we had Cliffview, where we requested that they go back. They came forward and they went with a wooden window.
Mhm.
We had the gentleman last meeting
That's right.
who has a building on Main Street. And then I wasn't a part of the decision, but I know that the COA requested a replacement of vinyl windows at 620 Harrison Street. And in looking at the meeting minutes today, I didn't see any mention of whether or if that was resolved.
No, that part of that COA did not move forward. But I do hear what you're saying about the consistency and getting information. And we did approve the Cliffview, the wooden window replacement.
We required that they bring that information back, is what we did.
Mhm.
And the same with Mr. Schmidt.
If I can add something before you take a vote on this. I talked to the gentleman in Albemarle County today and told him I was meeting with the ARB tonight. And he gave me an option that will satisfy them. And that is that's all. Yeah. A barrel boat. Barrel, B-A-R-R-E-L, boat, B-O-L-T. I can have those, he said, you can buy those at Lowe's for $1 or less. I can install those and we can forget about it, but the lady, those are old windows and they look terrible. So it's up to the ARB.
So they said that the barrel bolt would satisfy the current windows?
Yeah,
If the largest problem, as far as the county is concerned, it sounds like is the fire safety hazard of the
Yeah.
window falling back shut.
Right.
So a small latch that would, lock in place and hold it open would satisfy their concern there, is what Mr. Barnett's saying.
But I also see the new windows would be good. I also see that's
I prefer to put new windows in because I think it will help the town. But,
Right. I see it's a very curious conundrum, but we don't want, I just urge us to try. We have been working to try to apply consistency in what we ask of our applicants.
Mhm.
And we know that when people come forward, citing the fact that they've gone ahead and done something because they saw it done somewhere else, failing to bring a COA.
Mhm.
And then it coming to their attention that, then we have to stand and say, you're right. Others have done this. They've gone ahead and done it without coming to the ARB. And surely you know how much we appreciate your coming to the ARB. So I'm not trying to create an obstruction. I'm trying simply to apply consistency in the way we treat our applicants and our town citizens. And so I think it's probably going to, have to come to a vote.
We did apply before for the Bruceville.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We did apply here to the ARB for the Bruceville, and we got approval of the vinyl window. So I'm just saying, there is a precedent for us.
there's no consistency here.
Mhm.
If I can suggest one thing. I'm looking at the product line for the model of window here, and it doesn't, the quote that Mr. Barnett got doesn't specify a color. The vinyl finish on this series of windows comes in a range of colors, and they don't have a wood grain exterior, but they do have a variety of exterior colors. So if having the vinyl be anything other than white makes a difference, they can do bronzes and beiges and sandstones.
So can I just take a step back? Because I think this is a larger issue for the ARB, and I know that the Barnetts are interested in moving forward. I think having what would help make this decision is having a sample, a material sample, and I think it would help us with that consistency. So having a material sample of the wood that this company could supply, and having a material sample of the vinyl that this company could supply, and that we could look at the two materials and see if there is a visual difference, because ultimately it's coming down to the historic accuracy and energy efficiency, but really, the historic accuracy is from the street, correct?
Yes.
So it's not necessarily from the inside of the building. From the inside of the building, it's much more about the energy efficiency. So if we could see the two samples and say there's no difference, I think that making a decision for the vinyl, it wouldn't be a difficult decision. It's just about the historic accuracy from the street, and then that would in turn help us make decisions down the line, understanding, is this a first floor rule? Is it a second floor rule? Is it about where these get placed? Mr. and Mrs. Barnett, do you know if you should be able to receive a material sample? Have you talked to them about that at all?
What I would suggest the ARB do is approve the wood windows. And if we don't, and I can get the information on that, I think the vinyl was what, $2,300, Matt?
Yes,
23? If the wood windows are 23 or less, we'll go with the wood windows. But I would suggest the ARB approve the windows if they're wood, and we can go from there. Well, I could have more space.
Can we, what's on the COA? What does the COA specify?
I'm sorry?
Well, I guess we could approve that. Well, I'll leave that so we can discuss that. Do we want to approve a wood material and then? So I guess what you're suggesting, Mr. Barnett, we approve of the wood, and then we also then decide if the vinyl is the way we want to go. I don't know. I think. Aaron, to your point, I think to be consistent with how we've also dealt with the other property owners who have come forward with windows, getting the material sample, if we could look at them in the office, would be helpful. So I do think your point about from the street is important, because that's really what we're looking at. And if we can look at what these windows will look like, that would help us make a determination, I think. And it would also be consistent with what we've asked other applicants for.
Matt, are we looking at another month delay?
You can't wait another month?
He's asking about the timeframe for a decision, because you are under some pressure from the county to get this functional soon.
We can call a special meeting. We've done that in the last year or so that we don't have to wait another month.
Yes, if I can call the salesman and get a sample here, and then we can look at it and get you a decision in less than a month if that's necessary.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
What is your deadline? Is it a month or is it sooner than that?
When does the man from the county need a decision?
Well, he will wait until I call him tomorrow, and I can tell him what the ARB has required. And if need be, I can go to Lowe's and have my handyman install, because Mrs. Bell is back in there.
Mhm.
He moved in there yesterday. And this poor lady has been through hell. She's the one that was almost killed. She was on Route 20 and this car hit her head on and her tumbled over. The car turned over several times and she was in the hospital for 2 months. And now she just has been in this trauma unit over in Falls Church, and she just got home. She's been in a trauma unit for the last 2 months. So the poor lady is just, and I'd like to help her as much as we can. So if there's a delay in this, I can install the barrel bolts and then we can see what happens. The Albemarle County will approve the barrel bolts, because then she can get out she can push it up and lock the window, and then she can climb down a ladder or whatever.
So would you like to do that, and then I'll get the window sample, and we can resolve the replacement later, and you can do that anytime later, but have the hardware repair now.
And that'll actually save us $2,300 or $2,000, because I'm sure my handyman will probably. Okay.
Larry, I think that we can take care of this earlier than a month. I think it would just be helpful to know what is your deadline?
The deadline was a month ago, and then Lowe's really messed me up. That they ordered the windows on the day we went out there, and the guy measured them and took pictures of it and everything else, and then I tried back to get a sample of the windows that they were going to install, and they kept putting me off, and finally I canceled the order and called Window Depot, and they came out, and they have a better window anyway.
Mhm.
But I can go to Lowe's on Saturday morning. We can have the barrel bolts installed sometime next week. And then we'll see what happens with the ARB and the windows.
Mhm.
What the county housing office letter says is they will terminate this assistance contract if the problem is not fixed by the end of March.
Well, we can get a delay on that.
Yes, and I'm happy to call their office as well and tell them what we're working
He called us tonight.
Okay.
If the barrel bolts are installed and the plumber installs the other thing, they'll come back and inspect it, and they're fine with that.
on. Okay,
They don't have to replace the windows. We were just going to replace the windows because we thought it would help the town.
Yeah, and I think a window replacement will help the town. I'm glad you brought this COA forward for this.
If I can interrupt you, we've owned those buildings for 20-something years now, and our buildings are better maintained than any buildings in town. All you gotta do is go up and down the street and see. Thank you, sir.
We were very appreciative that when you approached us about the replacement of the roof on your building, and it was not going to be able to be replaced with slate, that there was a facsimile material that you brought us, product. We looked at it and we approved it on the same night that we got the COA. So that is definitely our interest is in moving cooperatively and collaboratively with everyone. And perhaps what the issue around authentic replacement of windows is going to turn on is commercial buildings versus residential or something like that. But we have had a series of applicants come to us about windows. And again, I am not trying to be obstructionistic. I just want us to be consistent because I think that that's important. So the rest of the board can weigh in on this and say, you're ready to take it to a vote, or we can go with the bolt. I hope you understand what I'm trying to convey. Do you, Zach?
Oh, I do. Yes. I mean, I think being consistent with what we're asking from applicants makes sense, especially with, we've done with Mr. Schmidt. We've asked him to return with things because, again, he's looking at a wood window replacement on the old Mason building. So
Right.
I think that makes sense. And I think to Aaron's point, I'm glad you brought up, from the street. That's what we're talking about. How do things look from the street? Because I also am very, I think, balancing safety and energy efficiency in all of our buildings in town is really important. That's another thing that's important when we talk about how we renovate and upgrade our buildings. And, our guidelines are interested in that as well. So
If I can just have one more comment. I cannot believe, and you can only see these windows if you're across the street. You cannot see them from the sidewalk in front of the building. I cannot believe any visitor that would come to Scottsville would say, oh my God, look up there. Those are vinyl windows. They're not wood windows. I rest my case, sir. So whatever you want us to do, fine.
all right. Well, I'll leave it to the board here to vote. How would you like to go forward with the COA?
I
I
think
need a motion. I'd like thank you, Aaron.
I support Barbara in this idea of or concept of consistency, and I understand that vinyl windows were approved by the Bruce Building previously, and I know that this current board is really wanting to create that consistency. So I think in order to make an educated decision, we need to have samples so that we can see whether it is apparent from the street, whether you can tell if it's wood or vinyl. So I move to wait on the decision based on the material sample.
Mhm.
Is that how I should phrase it, Zach?
That was a long motion, but yes.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just gonna, if I could, can I change your wait to table?
Yes.
Okay.
Please. And go ahead and put in the required bolt
Mhm.
in the meantime.
Give me a second.
Does the motion have a second?
Yes, you,
Sorry.
Barbara. You're gonna say.
I second this vote. I second this motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So what we'll do, if we can get samples into the town office ASAP, Matt,
Yeah.
and then send an email to everybody when they're in there, we can call a special, can we set the special, do you think we could set the special meeting now? Do you think we could get an estimate for?
I think not knowing what the schedule is going to be on getting material samples, we don't have any requirement to call that meeting here while we're met under quorum.
Okay.
So if you want to wait until we have a shipping date or something from the manufacturer, we can call that meeting and advertise it by email.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that then.
So I'll call this salesman and I will get the product here in this building. We'll look at it and I'll get you a decision certainly before that March deadline that you needed with the county. And I'll tell the county staff of this as well, that it's, you came here on time, but we didn't give you a decision today and we need time from him to get it figured out.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Good to see you both. Have a good night.
All right.
Along these lines, may I suggest that Mr. Schmidt be contacted and told that both vinyl and wood will be considered for his commercial building? And may I suggest that we undertake a conversation, just as we did around fences, with regard to windows, because we can't say yes today and no tomorrow, and then yes the next day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just think that the credibility and applying the same standard is of utmost importance. And I don't disagree that standing on the street and looking at a window and going, well, is that wood or is that vinyl? I understand that. That's not really where we were coming from when we talked about the importance of trying to preserve, to the extent possible, the materials in the architecturally significant older buildings. And this is where we are handicapped when we don't realize or know that previous ARB decisions went a different way.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And we don't have access to that information. So we're only as good as what the applicants, and I feel for them. But again, I just, we look at a lot of houses where people have undertaken to go ahead and do their own vinyl replacements. And then we become the arbiters of taste. Well, those are good vinyl windows versus those don't look like such good vinyl windows. And that's where, it may be easier, and that may seem like the easier way out to say, it should be wood to replace it as authentically as possible. But I'm not sure that, that is what we should be doing. And so I think we have to come to some sort of agreement about how that standard is going to be applied and how that decision is going to be applied, because we did demand that of the Unsworths. We did make that statement to Mr. Schmidt. And as I said, I don't know how the discussion went with 620 Harrison, but that was another issue where vinyl was suggested to replace, almost 200-year-old windows. So I think it warrants more conversation, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not in disagreement, Barbara. I think what we did here tonight was consistent with what we did with Mr. Schmidt. I think I agree that we need to also reach out to him, but we also told him that we wanted more samples. I mean,
Right.
what we told, I mean,
Wrote
that's,
the Wood quote. That's what we
yeah,
said.
that's
Just
what
like
we
we did
said.
to
We didn't say no to vinyl windows on his building. We said, we want to see more information. And I think
Exactly.
that's what we did here tonight. And so I think that's good. I think
That's consistent.
that's consistent. So I feel good about that decision. Although I do hear you, it's challenging because we are, what are we, a 3-year-old ARB as this board, or something like that. It is challenging when we learned that a decision was made earlier or what have you. And I don't know when those buildings, those windows were replaced. And I think to that effect, we might need to do a little homework in that regard. The other side of it is kind of like, is if we are consistent, because we're all following the same guidelines, there's not a lot of precedent in the ARB, for this kind of thing, aside from what we have done. The real precedent, if there's anything, it's the guidelines that we have to work from, in our own ordinances. So I think, and I think, Aaron, to your point, it is important for us also to remember that our purview is from the street in terms of what we evaluate. I think that's also something that we do that in our inventory, and that's sort of the priority in some ways. Although in the rehabilitation, there's also an emphasis on, replacing things as accurately as possible. And then there's this like gray area of how do we balance,
Right.
like, how do we balance the new and what's good for a building versus, what is accurate.
Right.
And that's why the appropriate word is always the one that we come back to. So
Exactly.
And just to add to that idea of precedents, we used precedents from other, similar scale towns for the fencing, similar time periods. I think it would be great to know how other small town ARBs balance this idea of historic preservation and details within the building, and contemporary energy efficiency, and whether those are outlined in their guidelines, or is that something that changes with each ARB. But I would love to know, how do other towns of this a similar scale and of a similar time period deal with this very issue?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, in some ways, I should have probably read our guidelines closer before this evening's meeting. But like, we should probably take a closer look at those too. I mean, as I'm just sort of looking through them here, what's recommended, things that define, the character of the building: frame, sash, muntins, glazing, sills, heads, head molds, panel, or decorated jambs are important. Survey of existing windows. The things that are not recommended are radically changing the windows. So I think in terms of style, but it doesn't specify material. Changing the number, location, size of windows, changing the historic appearance of windows.
Well, so Zach, I would just sort of back up what we said previously. Like, is the number one, you can get, as I think Mr. Burnett was saying, you can get very similar muttons, style and sizing in a vinyl window, but the question is the appearance. So can you see, the appearance from the street, is it dramatically changed if it's vinyl?
Right.
We don't know until we see it.
Yeah. And so I think and so I feel good that we've asked for materials. That's what I feel.
Yes,
I feel good about that.
I think that's an important part of this, because procedurally, here we are, and they're up against wanting to do something understandably on this woman's behalf, and yet it's sort of a at the last minute we need a decision,
right?
Or if we don't get this decision, then we're just going to put a bolt in, which feels like well, that doesn't really, accomplish what all would hope for, both in terms of helping this woman and, creating the good look that we want, et cetera. It's just that when these things come to us and it's either an already after the fact decision and there's no material presented or there's no elevation presented, it's also about compliance with what's expected on the COA. So, that unfortunately was a little inadequate too. I feel, because we didn't have any material.
But that's helpful for me to hear that if I have a little bit of time between the application coming in and a meeting, that I can look at those and tell an applicant, it really helps to have samples or pictures of precedents, show me what this looks like installed. And
Right.
it's easier for them to make a decision.
Right.
Yeah, and it sounds like we need to go beyond, calling that helpful and calling it required. If the board is unable or uncomfortable with making decisions without that stuff in front of them, it's asked for on the application there, and we just need to cite that as mandatory for applicants, if that's what you guys need. And I think the suggestion of finding peer communities to research, and having a work session, same as we did on the fence guidelines, is an absolutely, workable solution to get us some progress on that issue.
Right.
Back you up, Matt. It does say B, visual details of exterior showing materials used, colors, textures, door, and window design. I would just say to, applicants that you have a better chance of us making a decision with more information. The more information we have, the more informed we are, and the better chance there is of making a decision. I mean, I wouldn't promise, that we'd make a decision that, in this moment, but I do think that they need to know that we need to have as much information as possible in order to make decisions.
Thank you. Yep. To that point, it sounds like we will have a couple big Windows decisions coming up. So we've got this one, and then hopefully we also have some feedback from Mr. Schmidt. And Matt, I encourage you also to reach out to him because it has been 2 months.
I'm sorry, I do have a note from him. This was maybe the day after our January meeting, that for the moment, he's content to repair the existing and leave them as they are and work on other parts of the rehab. So he said we can take him off of upcoming agendas, but he's working with repairs to existing now.
Okay.
But that he may be back later.
Okay. I was talking. Okay. So I don't feel myself the need for a special meeting on this in the same way about the fences. I feel like with the fences we really had nothing. I think we have some better guidelines here, but I do think it'd be worthwhile, Matt, if you could find and pass around some resources we can make it a part of an upcoming ARB meeting. So to make, because that's how our fences conversation started. We looked at some resources, we talked about them here, and then we decided to go into a special session to flesh out, in our case, rewriting part of our guidelines. But if we could look at some common communities, we might at least get some frameworks for thinking about. Might not require a wholesale revision of our own guidelines, but it might at least give us some things to talk about and to come to some consensus with, or at least, and then from there we can make a decision if we need
A
further
full work session or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
That makes
start
sense.
there. Okay. And I don't know what our next meeting looks like in terms of agenda wise, but if we could do that next time in March. And that way we're ahead of things in case Matt Mr. Schmidt does decide to come back with some things for the spring.
So where do we stand with, if Matt, if you're able to get these samples, do we each just go in and look at them and give our opinion and move forward from there?
I think so. I'll have the window here at the office and you can stop by anytime and look at it. And maybe I'll place it up as high as I can so you can get distance from it.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I think once they're in, I can hear myself echoing in the town chambers. Once we've all seen it, once they come in, we'll set a date, because we will need to come back like this. I would like to meet like this to approve the COA. I don't want to make that decision without a board decision. So we'll make a meeting after the materials are in. Go in and check them out. Then we'll meet like this.
Great.
Okay, good. And so for next month, then, if you guys can share out, as early as you can, some, I don't know, other guidelines or something for us just to look at. We'll have a discussion in March specifically about windows, just thinking through how we, looking at our own guidelines, what are our interests there, our procedures at this point, and then how we'd like to make sure we're moving forward. And then we can decide at that point if we need an additional special meeting to work through anything else, especially if it involves revising guidelines. All right.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Where are we now? The agenda. We had, what's the, Mr. Meeks, old business. COA for porch and landscaping. Where, do we have anything new about that?
Matt seems to have wandered off.
Matt has absconded.
I think the last week, I'll let Matt answer.
What's the update with the Meeks COA?
I requested, passed on our guidance from the past meeting that we needed him here to answer questions and describe the project. He wrote back to me today that he was not going to attend and requested approval of the project as is.
Would you say that last part again? Requested approval, what?
Approval of the project as submitted.
I see.
So we'd be here to vote on it with the information in hand.
In a brief summary of what we were looking for feedback about, we still wanted the it sounded like we still wanted the elevation.
I don't.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Erin.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't think we needed. I think we decided we did not need the elevation based on the slopes that he gave us. But I feel like there was an additional question we had for him.
Material samples was what I had.
Yeah.
Roofing material samples and sorry, finding it here in my notes.
Yeah. The group discussed the need for material samples and elevation drawings for the COA requirements.
That was a similar kind of discussion to the one we just had about holding applicants to similar standards on submitted materials.
Right.
Yep. I think the key thing here was materials, as I'm looking at the minutes.
Yes.
And I guess which materials, so we're looking for
roofing materials.
Roofing materials.
Yeah, I think the drawings were unclear what the roof was going to be made of.
I'd like to see a material. I mean, I think we're consistent in asking for materials, and that predates this board, by the way. I mean, Jeffrey always asked for material samples, so we do this. We just do this.
And all ARBs do ask for material samples. It's required for all projects of a certain scale. And I think that we have to be consistent with everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think we asked for samples and we can take this up at our next ARB meeting, and he's certainly invited to attend. We'd prefer his presence when making a decision about his COA.
Well, now, if he has requested a decision, Matt, what's our turnaround? What's our requirement to turn around a decision to the applicant here?
Hmm. Good question. That might be in the ordinance. I can check that.
We did ask for material samples last meeting, correct?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if in the ordinance it says that the body is required to provide an answer in one, fashion or another, that you can't indefinitely table a decision, but at some point you'd have to say, this is an inadequate application and send it back. I know with planning commission, there is a requirement of that. You can't just sort of hold something indefinitely. It has to be decided on in a certain time frame from when the application is first submitted.
Got it.
Render a decision, this is 18.6.5. Render a decision upon any request or application for a COA within 60 days after the filing of an application accepted as complete. I don't think you have a complete application. because
I was going to say, I
not all
guess,
of your materials have been provided.
yeah.
Once you acknowledge that you have a complete application, you owe the applicant a decision within 60 days. But if we're saying this isn't complete because it doesn't have the materials details, I'm happy to hold it until we get that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Meeks said he had a busy week with lots of other meetings on his multiple jobs. Maybe his schedule will be better next month.
Okay. And if you may have included, you might have already included this in your last missive, but I think it's worth also reiterating that materials are part of what the ARB asked for. Is part of that's part of what we do consistently ask for.
Yes, indeed.
You should know. Yes. Well, anyway, like I said, it's not new that the ARB is asking for materials.
No. May I ask a follow-up question based on the conversation at our last meeting with regard to when new COAs are submitted beyond incomplete or failure to complete work on previously submitted COAs. I believe we pondered whether or not the town attorney might have an answer on this. There's nothing in policy as far as we know. It was a valid question. I didn't think we necessarily had any legal standing, but it is a valid question, particularly in light of the way Mr. Meeks responded to the conversation of the meeting that he did attend. Was there any further conversation around that, Matt or Thomas or?
We have it on town council work session on Monday
Okay.
coming up because it also relates to the enforcement matters that are before us here now. So I think I have not talked with the attorney about that since, but we have a chance to on Monday.
Is Jim going to be at the upcoming work session?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if I want to. Well, it might be. It is in part related to enforcement, but it also sounds kind of ARB specific. It might not be immediately related to the rehabbing poor properties, which is where I want the council to be thinking on Monday. So maybe if you can just get a separate email out to Jim with that specific question and copy us on it.
Okay.
I think that would be. I think that would probably be a better use of work session time. And that way we can use that information for ourselves, thinking about the COAs that come forward.
Sure.
Right. I don't want to muddy the waters. I just would rather be informed about, when this kind of a scenario comes up and there's this pushback and refusal and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question. And yeah, I don't know what legal ground we have either, but I do think it's something that if we could, something to consider when we're looking at COAs. All right. Okay, the properties inventories up here. I've got mine pulled up. Thank you for getting the spreadsheet out to us.
No problem. I did have a couple of little handwriting things that caught me up, and there were one or two other things that I couldn't quite decipher the shorthand that was used. So as we go through this, we might have to refer back to the scanned original copy
Okay.
for
Do
a
you,
few things. But
well, my interest in going through is really just to review the poor rated properties, because this is going to connect with our work session. So I just want to make sure that our notes on the poor rated properties are consistent and that we're all on the same page about them. Thomas, do you remember where the weird markings are?
I don't specifically, but we're not in any rush to approve the entire inventory. So if you'd rather just focus tonight on making sure the notes for the poor condition properties are squared away for work session, we could wait until next month to go over the rest of the list, and then at that point approve the inventory. I think doing that in March would be in line with our normal time frame for that.
Does that sound okay to the rest of the board, or do you want to do the whole inventory tonight?
No, I think that sounds smart.
I
Okay,
do too.
good. And Thomas, with this spreadsheet, did you end up checking the GIS on the properties that we had questions about?
That was one of the things that I had questions. I did catch the Page Street stuff. That was all, I think it's the even side of Page Street that was removed from this. I wasn't quite sure where the other ones that you had questions about were. So as we go through this, either tonight or tomorrow, if we run into any of those, we'll get the list all cleaned up before we approve it.
All right, well, let's focus on those then next time.
Sure.
And we'll need to look at the PDF for that. We'll just focus on the poor rated properties this evening. Thank you for including the survey standards on that second tab. I'm looking at my spreadsheet, so I'm not looking at any of you. So
No problem. The other tabs that you have down there are each of the poor condition property photos that you've included, which also doubles as a handy little list there.
Yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna go down the list. I'm gonna read the description. We're gonna look at the picture, and then I'll just ask for your feedback. Did we miss anything, or is there something else that needs to be included? So I'm looking at 165 hardware. This is our overgrown yard, abandoned house, collapsed roof with roof falling in, vegetation on exterior, trees growing into house.
Zach, I can make you host if you want to screen share and walk us through what you're looking at.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Is the screen share okay for people? Not everyone's down with the screen share. It can not always go great sometimes.
Screen share is great.
Okay.
You got it.
Oh, cool. I don't know why I say cool. I want to Zoom all day like this is something new. Okay. So this is Hardware Street. This is what we're looking at. This is the description. Are we good with this, or do we feel something needs to be added?
Can you go to the photograph?
It's
Ooh.
the barely discernible house, the roof at the end of the property.
There it is.
Yep.
And
Okay.
so, Thomas, in the column, it doesn't say poor, for the most recent inventory, but that, of course, is still poor. You see what I'm saying on the spreadsheet?
Isn't that what Zach has highlighted there?
Yeah, but for some reason on mine, it didn't come up. The word poor didn't come up in that block. So
That's
anyway.
interesting. I did hyperlink it to the picture there. So I wonder if maybe the hyperlink wasn't working in the section I sent you
Okay.
and it took the whole thing
All
out.
right. Well, I entered in where anything was blank. I entered it in. So
I wonder if that, okay, it'll be interesting. Keep us posted as we go through. I'll see
I will.
if
I
it was
will.
each of the poor condition ones. Huh.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I'm making a note.
Nothing to add.
Uh-huh.
Can I just ask, is Bob still with us?
Matt here. I got an email from him that he can see and hear, but doesn't seem to have his own camera or audio. But he told me he was on the call and can see and hear us.
Bob, if you can hear me, you can put comments in the chat. And we might need to figure out some tech. I need a tech solution here.
Yeah, because I feel like we need his, if he is our quorum or he is part of our quorum, we need his feedback too.
Yeah, so Bob, as we go through these properties, I think for today's purposes, if you can put in the chat like good or not good for each one, like agree or disagree, that I think will help. All right, so we're good with 165 hardware?
That property is on the market now. It's
Oh, is it?
yeah, it's being listed.
Okay.
Good.
We received an update from the property owner a little while ago that they had an offer, but were waiting for the court to approve the sale for the estate. And we've heard a little bit from the other side of that transaction, but it seems like everybody's still waiting on the courts.
Okay. So we're at 367, 371 Harrison Street is rated poor this year due to a window. Those are the other notes. So here's the image. Yes. Yeah, so this is one that's been like this for 4 years probably. So that's the window in question.
Okay.
Sound good here? Are we good with this determination?
Yep.
Okay. Poor here, 521 Harrison Street. Porch ceiling paint peeling, no street numbers. Window sills, north wall rotting, north wall window header rotting, paint failing on side walls of front porch, port columns, and wood screen under porch. Vegetation on porch and south wall. 521 Harrison. Here. What are we looking at here? This picture does not seem to convey.
No.
You mean it doesn't convey the problem that you're talking about?
Yes.
Is it?
Should this be? Is there anything unsealed? Doesn't, Aaron, we did this.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that says unsealed or like structurally unsound.
Yeah, I feel like it looks as though because this one has said good in the past couple of years that it's one of those that because it's been left, the issues have been left for a while, that it's becoming a larger issue. I do wonder, I'm looking at the PDF and it looks like no street numbers. Yeah, I think it's that header that I think makes it poor.
That's what I was wondering. The picture is of the north wall there that the window references are both to.
Yeah, and both headers, at least the upper one, but well, maybe the lower one too, both are rotting. And I think we saw that as being a potential structural issue.
Okay. So then in the survey here, I opened this on my own. So whoever owns the master copy will have to make this addition. But emphasize the header, the rotting headers. Yeah, there it is. So like that bit of the text. Because when we communicate, we'll need to communicate what specifically will move this from poor to fair or better. And it sounds like it's the headers.
It is getting ready to be put on the market. So just in terms of communication to whomever it is going to be listing it.
Yes.
About the fact that, of course, it's in the HOD, but that it's in poor condition. I mean, I was just made aware that it has been cleared out and it's going to be put on the market fairly soon.
I saw
Okay.
a building inspector there the other day, or a house inspector there the other day. I assume that was part of the real estate process there.
Okay. Do we,
That's a good point for this enforcement discussion, that we make that part of the, oh gosh, if we put that on, I don't know, get the notice as part of the listing, that like
Yeah, I know.
the new owner needs to know that this has to be fixed. You're buying something with a zoning problem.
well, and I think too, part of getting a letter of pour is that the property owner comes to meet with us, because again, we're assessing something from the street. And so part of that conversation that we're intending to have with these property owners is to evaluate the problem. So that, you know, it might not be as severe as we think it is. The thing that we have determined is that the appearance from the street is such that we think there might be a substantial problem. So,
Yeah, so please explain it.
right. And I think that's the idea.
Right, good.
All right, well, good deal. Also emphasize that in 521 Harrison. And thank you, Barbara, for the inside intel. All right, 715 and 717 Harrison. Oh, wait, let me go back. Sorry, let me go back to the inventory. So what are we talking about here? Windows missing on first floor facade. South porch rotting at base. South windows need paint. Front porch missing gutter. Front fence paint peeling. North facade 3 windows missing. Okay, is this the fire damage? Yes, this is still the fire damage place. But I think the windows that need replacing are on the other side.
Yeah. Oh, except,
I think.
are those,
Oh, on the bottom.
yeah, those
Got it.
2 boarded up windows.
Yep. Let me see. Okay. Are we all good with this determination?
That it's poor.
That it's poor, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Good.
let me interrupt for just a second, because once again, in the column, I don't have a rating for, just stepping back to 581 Harrison Street.
Uh-huh.
What is the rating that was to have gone in there? It's
4.
just
Oh,
Yeah, I
580.
don't have a rating in mine either.
Sorry about that. That might have been one of the ones that I couldn't read. Can we pull up the PDF copy there, Zach?
Do I have the PDF?
I think it was included in the email that Matt sent out with all the documents for today.
Look.
The inventory results it's
Oh.
listed as.
I have a hard, so I have the originals.
This is just photos.
Oh, you're right. That is just the photos. Shoot. Oh, darn it.
We'll make a note to
Let me see if I can find it. Hang on one second.
I have the original, hang on.
Oh, you do there, Matt? Okay.
581.
581 Harrison Street.
I think it's a little ditto note.
Was this a shorthand notation I couldn't read?
Yeah. But I'm not sure if the ditto note means same as the year before or same as the one above it on the list.
Can you hold it up to the screen?
yeah, in my mind.
oh, wait a second. This is not helpful right now.
How
Oh wait, stop share. There we go.
is it? Oh, can you talk so we can see it big?
Oh, okay. So I can't quite tell if I'm showing you the right part of the page, but here it is. And it's that.
Okay.
It's that.
That looks like my handwriting, but I don't.
Is it same as the one above it or same as it was the year before?
There's an arrow there, so I think, Aaron, you're carrying through the previous years.
Yeah, in addition to,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Matt, will you talk again?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So it
Here,
looks.
Matt, can you screen share with me? I just pulled it up here in digital form.
Oh, okay.
It looks as though I said this plus this, but I don't know if I actually wrote a.
All of the same issues as previous, plus these other issues.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what kind of condition would that make?
What were we on? It was,
581 Harrison.
So
sorry.
maybe from good to fair is what I'm getting the sense. If it got more,
Yeah, the new issues are mildew and moss.
And do we have a photograph of it?
Sorry, these were out of order.
Sorry.
I think it's near the end on mine. Yep.
There we go.
It says poor at the bottom.
no, 581.
It doesn't say anything.
No.
That's helpful.
Well, I think based on our notes, this would not be a poor rated.
I didn't have any pictures of it, so I did not think that this came up.
Yeah.
But I
Arrow,
just wondered if it was a fair, whether it had gone down from good to fair or stayed good or.
Okay, you want here. Hmm.
I mean, it is very similar to the previous year in which it was
Yeah.
rated.
I
good.
would say good
okay.
Okay.
because it's superficial.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No
That's okay.
problem.
No issue.
Why we're doing this? Oh yeah, I guess I can go back to. Do you
Yeah,
want me to
sorry.
see
If you need me to go back to mine, I'll pull that up. Or actually, here, Zach, I'll just email that file to you so you have that too.
All right. Okay. So now we're going down. Okay.
They're doing great with the Zoom dance.
All right. So we talked about 715, 717 poor, 725, 727. This is really poor because of the foundation failing. And so we're looking at 725 Harrison. The key picture is on the left here. This cinder block is akimbo. And so it appears there might be some buckling in the cinder block.
This does sort of underscore the question that we were discussing earlier about poor properties rated poor, multiple properties rated poor, simultaneous with the property owner making requests for new additions to things.
Yes.
I'm just pointing that out right now because I didn't do this part of the inventory and I'm seeing it, really looking at it now, and so I think that it's germane is all.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. That was a conversation had on the walk.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, poor. Looks poor to
Okay.
me.
Where are we here? All right, the next one is my cursor here. 301 Jackson Casket Shed. Looks
Uh-huh.
like the same issue as last year. Where's the image? Oh, it's 301.
Wait a minute. I feel like we've skipped over. No, you're right. Okay. Right. It's everything that it was before and
Yeah.
nothing's been improved.
Right. And so we're really looking at, we'll go back to the description, but I think that corner piece. Rod on clapboard siding. Foundation repaired northeast corner insufficient. So that's really what we're talking about here to at least get it to a fair rating, I think. All right.
Okay.
Very, very excellent. Good. Okay, here we go. This is 380 East Main, foundation chimney paint conditions persist. I believe this is the dollhouse.
Yes.
Okay.
Three
sorry.
East Main. Sorry, I'm still rifling through here. 380 East Main. 380.
Steel building, here we go.
6, 7. All right, for some reason I've got.
So no new news here.
No, I mean, it's really.
Simple note.
I feel like for some reason mine is cut off just a little bit. So we've got poor, but I just see foundation chimney paint conditions persist. So that's all we really have in terms of notes. It's just really that everything that has qualified it as poor before is in fact still an
There.
issue.
Okay. I think that's good for me. 390 East Main, we have multiple cracks in the foundation. Gutters were corrected. So that's worth noting. Porch railings unstable, porch posts missing, trim needs paint. So 390.
Oh yes, this one. So Tyler and I were sort of different opinions, but he felt it needed to be poor. It's interesting because I think the current occupants who are not the same as who'd lived there before have done a few things to try to tidy it up, but we still have, these cracks in the foundation, the lack of stability with the porch railings and the porch posts missing, all kind of lend to this ongoing appearance of a lack of stability.
Yeah.
And so clearly, I mean, I still had it at a fair. He had it at a poor. I gave it to him. So
I guess we as a board need to decide whether it's fair or poor to.
right.
I would say that those same issues that Zach and I called out, so cracks in foundation, railing unstable, those made our properties go from fair to poor.
Poor. Yeah, it's just
So
a
I would
deterioration.
Yeah, and I think, I think this is probably the language we should use with all of the letters we send out. But this is another situation where it looks like it's poor, but like I would want the property owner to get an assessment of it and to come to us with an explanation of what is going on.
Right.
So I just think, Matt, when you send out these letters, whatever language you're using, I think part of it should probably be, the board is interested in discussing the condition with you and assessing the status of the building. We've certainly given it a determination, but I think it's also, that meeting should also be in part sort of information gathering.
We included a document in the packet for this evening's meeting that we can talk about when we're done going through all of these properties. But we found some policy and procedure from a previous administration on how to handle these letters that was sent out to you guys, and I think would be worth revisiting before the end of the meeting.
Cool.
Yeah. That was good to see. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll do that. Thank you. All right, next one. 410 East Main, rated poor. Ridge cap deteriorated, loose trim at front gable eave, loose sleet at west front roof, deteriorated shutters, extensive paint peeling, broken porch seat, partial vegetation on front gable, cracks in retaining wall. So ridge cap deteriorated and cracks in retaining wall may be the thing here. Doesn't appear that there's a tab for 410.
I may not have had a photo for that one.
Okay, so just make a note to add a tab to this in our master document.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we could run over and get some pictures of that if need be.
Okay. Oh, we good? We good with this? Any
Yeah.
more discussion? Okay. 460 East Main, note open window second floor, same condition overall. I
This
think
is the bus depot.
Bus depot. Yep. General shop, yeah, that open window is the biggest one. However, I did send pictures because I did a little closer inspection after our last meeting with Mr. Lucas, that a lot of those frames are gappy now. He got that email he should have received that email from us already. There are some other things, but I think, at least remember, street view is our purview. Certainly that window needs to be resolved. All right. Any more discussion of 460 East Main?
No.
Okay. Tutwiler Building. Very old white building with gauge. I think that should be say garage.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Conditions remain. So what are we here? Tutwiler Building. This is really it. I mean, we might want to add that there's also structural issues with this building. The
Oh, yeah.
roof peak is
Yeah.
akimbo. I've used that word twice now in this meeting. So I think in the notes for this one, I think you should note that there are structural issues with this building.
Yes, it looks on the verge of collapse. I mean, there's either a serious settling or, yeah.
This one brings to mind the same one as the large white house across the street. What's the building called? The one that we did, Zach?
Well, the Stinson House?
Yeah, the Stinson House. That it is a safety hazard, especially for the public. So you don't even have to be on the property to feel like that's going to fall on you.
Right.
So I feel like this is a situation where we potentially defer to an organization that's larger than us. So I think did we talk about the county, Zach, in reference to the Stinson House?
We did, yeah.
And I think this would be one of those situations.
Okay, building code call.
Yeah.
This, we have some fun stuff to talk about later in terms of how we can provide assistance to people who have problems like this for houses they're living in. But I worry just a little bit. So, I'm just saying this so that we can all think as creatively as possible about this. This being a commercial building, it won't have access to the same kinds of programs that do rehabilitations for structures people actually live in and depend on.
And I will also add that once the county becomes involved, there are probably some timelines that start ticking away. I'm guessing. Yeah.
I think that might be good.
It might.
Yeah, the hazard that you raise, I think, particularly given the proximity, to the street, the sidewalk, people could easily enter. I really question its stability altogether. But it isn't a residence; it's an outer dependency, and so I don't know whether it would come under the purview of the assistance that's being made affordable to people, available to people.
But the request of the board is that we do reach out to, I guess this would be Fluvanna County building officials regarding safety inspection.
Is that in Fluvanna? I thought it was still in Scottsville.
Is that, well, we have Fluvanna side of Scottsville.
Yeah,
I think that might actually be in Albemarle.
Pull up the GIS here.
I think that's actually in Albemarle.
But the question about is that the preference of the board that we reach out to the building officials of whichever county regarding the safety hazard?
That would be my preference.
Yeah, I guess I am concerned about that, not because the building is, yeah, I know what the building looks like. I guess I'm more concerned about moving forward because of I'm afraid of what will happen to afraid of what the expectation will be from the county in terms of cost and rehabilitation and timelines should they discover that something is wrong. And I say that just knowing the property owner a little bit, but
Maybe it would be helpful to I mean, I know this makes it a little bit more subjective, but maybe it would be helpful to understand the place that the property owner is in, especially in relation to what Thomas suggested with assistance and thinking
Yes.
creatively about how to support.
Do we know what purpose the building serves at this juncture, Zach?
I believe it's storage.
Can you tell us a little bit about the situation?
Storage that's accessed or storage that's just detritus? Storage that hasn't been hauled away but isn't accessed all the time. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, is it a garage that's a functional garage, or
Yeah.
is it?
I know there are things stored in it, and that's all I know. That's all I know.
Okay.
So I think what am I thinking about here? We're not calling, I guess the other thing, we're not, I mean, we have other buildings with structural issues. So we are not calling the county about or a building inspection for. So
if I were to try to identify within the HOD the buildings that look most vulnerable to collapse, but I'm not a qualified inspector. I mean, I can't say with any certainty. I see that roof line, I see the settling, and I fear that it's genuinely, on the verge. And right up there with the one, the overgrown one on Hardware.
right.
But that's a layman's observation. So I mean,
Right.
it could be the kind of thing that is determined that it, even though it's extremely old, that it might be better off raised. I mean, right now, it's so far from what it would have originally looked like. You're right. It would take a lot to bring it back because it's that far gone.
Right.
So I don't know what the answer is there, folks. I really.
Yeah. And I guess my question is procedurally. So when would the town call a building code inspector? What are the things that would trigger that?
That's what I was going to say. I think it would make sense to not circumvent our own process first. That would feel like a departure from the precedent that you all are trying to establish of how you handle each of these things the same. Yeah, seems to me like maybe we go through another notification and request for a meeting before we consider elevating this out of the range of business that you guys ordinarily attend to.
The one time I pursued that building code enforcement was when there was construction work happening on a building which didn't have a COA, and we knew that it was the kind of work that also required building permits. So it was in violation of historic district for unpermitted work, and it was also violating building code for improper work done without a building permit. And we worked on that enforcement together. If If nothing is being done on the property, then that standard isn't met.
So is there a standard that the town would apply for a structure that seemed unsafe?
I would make a public safety judgment at like imminent danger of collapse. If it were unsecured and a hazard to a teenager who might go into it and then it falls down on them. That's the kind of common sense safety thing where I would feel negligent if I didn't call it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Aaron, I can't see you. There you are. So since you raised the issue of calling a building inspector, how do you feel about moving forward with our process as it is for now in terms of notifying property owners?
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. You know, I think there, like everything, there needs to be a time limit. Say, you know, we notify them, we want to meet with them. They have, you know, I don't know what sort of time limit we would have, but I don't think it should be something that 6 months from now we're talking about. So I think it seems reasonable that we would bring it to their attention that we are concerned about the property and that we need to meet with them within a certain amount of time.
Okay.
The owner is.
Yeah.
Say again, Matt?
The owner, you mean?
Yes. I don't know what I said.
You used a pronoun. We were trying to figure out who we were referring to. Yes, the property owner. Yes, the property owner.
Yes.
That sounds good. Okay. We might then also do that with because we also had concerns about another poor property, the Stinson house. So we might do the same thing there. Although the difference with this, well, we'll come to the Stinson house. Okay, so we're good with the determination here. Thank you all. Okay. Fair for 488 East Main. Sagging porch flooring and west side of porch settling. 488.
This is right across the street from the last one.
Oh. Wait, no. Right, and this is the same from last year.
Right.
The picture's a little at a distance, but yes, that the porch, I think on the left side or the west side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that persists from last year. Okay.
So no changes.
No changes. Go for it. The C&O depot, right? So same structural issues, some cleanup of surrounding area has occurred. And so we're still concerned here about, wait, didn't we already look at the depot?
No pictures. No, this is not the bus depot. This is the train depot on the other side of the levee.
Right. Got it. Same things. Same as here. I thought
Oh, we do have it. Look at that.
So that may be like a new door. I'm not sure, you know, then they are definitely storing things in there, but
Yeah.
As you can see, the eaves and the soffits are still open and, you know, boards have come down.
Yep.
But as we noted, they've done some immediate area cleanup. But beyond that, it's in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, the building's still the same. And actually it has gotten worse because of the missing boards now along the roof line. It's still poor.
Yeah.
Okay. 560 East Main. Oh yeah, there is no property here.
No, there's no building. There's
There's a property, no building. Thank you. Thank you.
But I heard that it's been, Peter drove by it today and said that it's been somewhat cleared, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I haven't put eyes on it, so I don't know that for sure, but it's just, you know.
And this is one we've talked about in the past, whether or not it should be deemed a rating by the ARB, considering that there's no structure there.
Right.
I carried over what was there from last year as the notes had indicated, but I think that might be worth, doesn't have to be tonight, but maybe one last look before we approve this overall. Do we want to keep carrying that port rating forward, or do we want to mark it as like an NA or something like that until there's a structure on it?
Since we're talking about poor properties tonight, I wouldn't mind addressing this. I mean, since there isn't a building there, it does seem, and we're really not adjudicating anything. I would personally be comfortable with an NA. How do others feel?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's disappointing that it continues along that stretch to be more of an eyesore than anything else. But, that just speaks to what the community is willing to accept and not make comment on, I guess. I don't know. It speaks to the issue around whether or not all of these things contribute to the viability commercially of us going forward, and how people perceive how healthy the community is if we are looking more and more derelict as it goes. And I don't mean that with anything other than just attention to the smallest details, not rehabbing buildings overall. So that's the only thing there. If because there's not a structure on it, that technically takes it into the NA, that's fine with me. I just would like to see it cleaned up a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, I empathize with that, Barbara, and that's part of why I'm addressing poor properties at the work session with town council this time around, for just that reason. Because I do think, especially along East Main, we are heading in a different kind of direction.
Yeah.
That feels concerning and that is beyond what the ARB does in terms of trying to communicate with property owners and approve COAs. So
Right.
so those comments will be carried forward on Monday.
Okay.
Zach, are you seeing Bob's comments?
I am. I was about to chat him up and say thanks for your participation. Okay, scrolling through here. Are these highlighted ones the ones that are not?
Correct. That's even side of Page Street that can come off.
Okay. All right. And then what are these? Oh, none notes.
Yeah, there were no notes. The 605, 625, those are the only two Page Street houses that fall in our historic district. The ones up at the very top.
Got it. All right. All right, our next pour here, 215, 225 South Street.
Nope, I missed a space there.
What are we looking at here? 215, 225.
That's
South Street, that's the warehouse, the old tobacco warehouse.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what are we dealing with there? Still windows?
Yep.
Okay, so south side windows. So you might want to. Okay, east windows, good. Okay, so we'll leave that determination as is, largely carryover from last year. What are we going here? The Beale Building. This is really the windows on the north wall, 380, 392, that are really just the exact same as they were last year. So it's this window here we're looking at, and the one below it has like a drilled hole in the frame that just hasn't been, oh, here it is. Sorry about that. So there's a hole down here. It's open, it's unsealed. And then this one too, it's gappy. So this window is also unsealed, which brings it to poor.
Maybe.
But again, that's carryover from last year. Aaron, anything else about that? Are we good there?
I think I feel like there was a window on the back, but
Yes. The drywall window coverings are failing.
yeah.
And that's on the back side. So there aren't, I don't know if we took pictures of those. but those also look like they're going to need to be shored up or replaced.
Yeah. But it's the same and getting worse.
Hmm.
They've done some painting, but it does look like you guys have done a pretty thorough job in the notes here of identifying where they have not yet repainted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got pretty high up and then
Mhm.
they didn't continue.
Right.
I think the ladder, that was the max of the ladder height.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, making a note. I'm going forward now. In the meantime, some good, excellent. 476 Valley, poor.
Wait
Chimney
a minute,
leaning.
what about 475? I don't see a rating for it.
I don't either.
So
Let me pull up my condition survey.
Oh, it doesn't even have notes.
no, but it was excellent last year.
It was with no notes, and there was nothing written in the survey this year on it.
That's the big building just up from here. Is it there on a different address?
Oh, the mint green building?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's got multiple numbers.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for it. It probably does show up somewhere else in here, but let me then
We may
highlight that
actually, believe it or not, Aaron and I may not have talked about this building. I am actually willing to own that right now. Aaron and I have not talked about the largest
the literal elephant in the room.
contiguous structure in town.
That's okay. I had to go back to the farmer's market because we completely passed right by it. So
I will be happy to walk by that building tomorrow and
Good.
send notes to the town office.
right,
Oh,
right.
how did that happen?
I don't know. That's embarrassing for everyone
Okay.
involved. Okay, so I will do that tomorrow. Where'd my inventory go? Oh yeah, I'm screen sharing everything. I forgot. Okay. 476 Valley. Chimney leaning, dormer window, awning where? Yeah, so this is the upper window broken. This is the same as last year. Where there it went. So same as last year.
Yeah.
And really dealing with the windows on the upstairs.
Well, this is another building that I've heard is for sale.
Yes.
And I don't know if that is of concern or not.
I wonder if he's listing it himself. I mean, it is a real estate office. That'd be pretty easy to communicate with the seller's agent if it's self-listed.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I think we do the same thing, I mean, I think, we're not dealing with realtors, so I think same thing, contact the property owner in the same way that we do. And then once it goes on the market, I think we communicate with the realtor at that point with our same information.
Oh, I think it's already listed on the market. That's why I was saying.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
It is, yeah.
I mean, obviously, anybody who purchases it knows there's a lot of work to be done.
Right.
So it won't come as a surprise, I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is a good example of one, though, where I would say, as old, as an important, and as intrinsically beautiful and historic as it is, that's a classic example of where the windows, unless those were some vinyl windows that looked really, really, really good, it's just it's kind of the quintessential colonial late 1700s, early 1800s building in Scottsville. I think it's got tremendous historic architectural significance. And so some of these other buildings, it doesn't feel as, if you'll allow me to say, criminal. This one, it's so sad because it has so much intrinsic beauty. So,
Yeah.
so when it turns over, changes hands, I just hope that there is a clear understanding of its importance to Valley Street. That's all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think since it's already on the market, this would be one where I think we should reach out to the realtor, find out who it is, and send them the information, our realtor letter that we have from last year, so they can share that with prospective buyers.
Right.
Okay. I'll say, okay, next one, 550 Valley Street. This is the Stinson house. And this one, so structural issues persist. What's new is that the railing on the second floor is now separated on the south side. And this is why the reason why Aaron and I thought we should contact the county about this one is because it's a rental property. I don't know if anyone's currently inhabiting the building,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
right. And so I think that's why Aaron and I were concerned about contacting the county, because we felt that actually might pose a real risk to people who are currently using the building.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, I feel like there's a border almost with like, this is a rental property. The garage is right next to the sidewalk, which is a public thoroughfare. As far as, what we call into the county, I feel like maybe it's more about, not the owners inhabiting it. I don't know. It feels as though, this is a risk to somebody who's renting it and who doesn't necessarily know about the structural issues. I'm not sure. I'm just sort of
Again, I'm still curious about the town's purview, like when we call in things. That's
Right.
still my question. But I think for now, following the same thing we're doing with the Tutwiler building makes sense here. But it is noteworthy that the safety of the second floor balcony is now in jeopardy.
Yeah.
While in addition, the structural nature of the balcony and the downstairs, the first floor, also still remain like this is deteriorating. So some persist, but that second floor balcony was notable this year. Okay.
Yep, agreed.
Let's see. James River Brewery has improved.
Sorry, just saw Bob's comment on the last house.
Now, what did he say?
Still not interested.
Thanks, Bob. Let's see, where are we here? Oh, this one moved from poor to fair. 135 Warren. Huzzah and hooray for them.
The stabilization work, making progress there.
Okay. 160 Warren. Yes, a missing vent or block. This is the exact same stuff as last year, actually. It's the same. It's neither worse nor better.
I remember talking with the owner about their plans to do that work. I guess I'm surprised it hasn't been done, because we talked in the summer and he seemed motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So same thing, and it's the foundation down here. That's where the gaps are.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's it.
That's it.
That is the end of the list.
I think it's notable that I was trying to draw them in map order, and they pretty well come in two clusters. The the problem properties on Valley Street more or less back up to the problem properties on Harrison. And then we have this East Main grouping. So I think there's a good case to make that we have cluster problems, and in a way it seems contagious. And going after some community resources or additional funding that lets us think about these as clusters, I'm certainly interested in doing.
Is there funding like that?
Yeah.
Yes, I shared with you guys the homeowner resource document that had some AHIP resources. It was included in the email that Matt sent out. Those are the individual homeowner programs, but AHIP also runs something called a block by block program, where they partner with groups of homeowners or a municipality, try to bring in outside funding, other resources, and try to target a cluster of houses like this at a time. In fact, currently it seems like this is most of what they're doing because they're not as able to do small individual volunteer groups as easily anymore. So when they talk about how they issue priority to applicants, they specifically say they give priority to housing housing for the elderly, for families with children, and for group projects like this block by block thing. Matt, have you had any luck talking with them about that?
I've got a meeting with them next week with their director and guy in charge of the repair programs to learn about that and see what their queue of projects is like.
Great.
But-
Can you give us a rundown of that meeting at our March ARB meeting?
Oh, absolutely. We were hoping to maybe have that for tonight, but I think there's going to be a lot to talk about there. And so, yeah, we'll put a big bullet point next to that on the agenda next month.
Okay. Great.
It looks like the best sort of option because I don't know of any other program like AHIP around that does that much sort of extensive home repair inside and out. You know, a lot of the things that they do specifically address the stuff that the ARB is concerned with when you move a property to poor condition, foundation cracks, failing porches, windows, doors, things like that. They also do a lot of heating and plumbing and interior work that is beyond our purview, but just good for homeowners. But the waiting list is about 400 people long for the individual projects at the moment.
I saw that 400 households currently on the list mean they're waiting. They're not being worked on right now. Okay.
That's correct. Those are eligible, approved applicants who are waiting for a project to come to them. So it is a very long waiting list. Like I said, they give priority on that waiting list to housing for elderly, families with children, and these big group projects. So the hope would be that we can kind of cut to the front of the line with a group of Scottsville residents.
How do they get their funding just generally? And I know you're going to get more information, but I just wondered where the funding came from.
It seems like the group applying has to bring some amount of it, and we don't know exactly what that would be. So we would be responsible providing some amount of funding. I think a lot of it is write-offs that their partners are able to do. I don't know as much about how that works, but it seems like they have a list of very regular contractors who do all of this work with them. And so I'd imagine that the contractors are getting some benefit for doing this work through a nonprofit like AHIP and writing it off. But then it does seem like, especially for the block by block projects, there is an element of outside fundraising that needs to be accomplished as well.
Let's see. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So for town council, that it looks like that document that you attached that has the images of the properties, I think it will be helpful for council to see pictures. So thank you for putting that together. I think additionally on each of those slides include the property address and 2 to 3 bullet points lifted from the inventory about the issue of concern.
Okay.
And then that'll make it easier for us to communicate what we're concerned about. And Matt, it might also be helpful to just have an overview slide. It's just sort of like, what are the big issues, that we've talked about? And I think as a board, we're concerned about sort of the clusters. We're concerned about sort of chronic issues. A number of these properties have been poor 2 or 3 years in a row. We're concerned about the increased number of poor properties. So clusters, chronic, and new, right? So it's been especially East Main, I think, the number of new poor rated properties there. And then, discussing enforcement. I think that's the other thing, sort of enforcement and problem solving.
I
How do we-
think about these as being in different buckets between low-income homeowner occupied versus investor owner who's negligent.
Right.
Those strike me as needing different solutions.
Yep, I think that's right. Which also sort of the residential. Well, I wonder if it's also residential commercial.
I think that that's part of it, right? You'd hope that commercial properties have an easy way to make money, and so there's an incentive in fixing them up and turning them over that maybe just isn't there for a homeowner, for an individual house.
Yeah.
The negligent landlord with a tenant is also a concern. You would,
Mhm.
like, if you fix it up better, you could charge more rent, but that's not happening.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so I think that that'll help just frame it for town council, so they have a couple bullet points just about what our conversations have been. Is there anything else you would like to make sure I emphasize with town council about poor rated properties or the inventory findings in this way?
I think that, I know that when there were the conversations that brought people together about health in general in Scottsville and the Scottsville area, that there were observations. People did say it wasn't so much that it was a matter of, the lowered morale that associates with seeing a community begin to kind of neglect itself, but that it was that there was an element of that you want to raise your children, you want to try to create a community that you can be proud of and that everybody cares about, and that there was just beginning to be this feeling, this kind of collective feeling that obviously would only be exacerbated by COVID, but that it just that the caring, that wasn't there, that it was going away, and you really have to resist this subjectivity of what's okay and what isn't. But on the other hand, it does speak to a feeling of sort of fiscal depression. Would I want to bring my business here? Would I want to bring my out of town folks here? Those kinds of things begin. If you're around it all the time, you don't see the gradual deterioration. When you come back after not being here and you see it, it's marked. And so I think it's just that everybody, it's a community that does care, but we need to kind of identify and articulate how to show that, how to demonstrate that. And that is where, coming together as a community to take pride in and have respect for our neighbors by how we just care for our property. So I don't know how you monetize that. I know that the concerns about, well, with lots of vacant buildings and buildings for sale, what does it take? What do you have to, inject to be able to make them more marketable, more desirable? So there's the commercial message, but I think there's also the kind of community mental health message that is, we got to show that we care, and we've got to demonstrate it in the way we take care of our properties, our streets, ourselves, etc. And this isn't pointing any fingers at any person in particular. It's just that it's a phenomenon that we, I think, need to, be willing to talk about.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think that brings up the question of, or the sort of topics of, are these residents or are these investors? And it seems to me, I don't know the statistics, but a lot of these, or a few of these structures, are owned by people who don't live here. And I think there's something to be said for, you know, when you live in a community, you're invested in it. And if you don't live here and you don't see it on a daily basis and you don't walk by these buildings, then are you invested in it? And that's not to say anything about what our responsibility is, or, you know, but I do think it's an essential part of the conversation, at least for the town to have.
I
Mhm.
agree. But ironically, especially on East Main, a lot of what you're looking at are multiple buildings owned by the same person that resides there.
Yeah.
And, you know, in one of the cases, it's a resident who also owns one of the business buildings in town. So I don't think there's a real clean line there, Aaron, really. I think, yes, it's easy to be a, you know, what do you call it, an absentee landlord and let things fall apart. And that's unacceptable. That's objectionable. But I also think it speaks very much to getting the message across that if you live in a place and you own a building that's a workplace in a community, then there's that responsibility to your community as well. And so the good thing about AHIP that I like is that they do apparently then have the specialists that come in that evaluate, in fact, whether or not what the economic strength of those property owners are, so that we're not operating on assumptions.
Yeah.
Either way.
Right,
I think that's really important.
right. That is. That is. All right.
The other thing Matt and I were talking about, because, you know, this is such a complicated thing, but if you guys feel like it would be appropriate, we could include other social service resources on that document. I don't think that we're going to find any other kind of homeowner resources that are as directly applicable as what AHIP does. But to this thought that, you know, if you're in an economic hardship and don't have money to put towards the maintenance of your house, any other money that we can help you free up could potentially go towards that, whether it's helping connect you with food banks, heating assistance in the winter, you know, X, Y, and Z. So if you guys feel like that would be appropriate information to include on this document as something to circulate, you know, we have, the police have a CIT, their sort of emergency intervention training that they do, provides them with a long list of various social service resources to connect people with. And so we could absolutely just poach anything that looks applicable or helpful from that and include it on this document if you'd like.
Well, I think what we should do, you know, pull together the ones that look applicable. And I think at our next meeting, let's take a look at what we're going to send out to property owners. Because I don't think let's do that before I guess we could do it now. But I think since there's still some decisions to be made about how we're communicating, let's, in March, look at a letter, the form letter that'll go out, which will then also include the slate of resources.
That was my hope, was that we could have this document on roughly the same timeline as when we're going to send out those notifications. And I think we've got another month or two there before we need to have anything going out the door. So yeah, my hope was that that could be a little bit of a way to soften the news for somebody receiving a poor condition letter. Here's a list of some resources that might help you address it.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to know what those resources are, and then we can edit them next meeting.
Yes, yeah. So I'll bring that CIT list to you guys next month, and we can sort of, you know, if it's okay with you, I might take the liberty of cutting out anything that doesn't seem so directly associated with lowering somebody's cost of living. But yeah, we'll bring that list in some form to you guys to pick and choose what you think the most appropriate things to share would be.
Yeah. But it would be helpful too if you could send out the finalized inventory with my notes, which I will contribute tomorrow, and the form letter with your chosen resources, like at least like a week before, because that'll give us some time to look over them ourselves, so we're not doing it here in the meeting, and then we can just jump right into conversation about how we want to move forward with those documents.
Okay, sure. Still taking the time next month to go through the non-poor condition in that inventory
Yes, but if you send the inventory out beforehand and we all like look over it, then we'll be able to just say, are we good or not? Because I think it's probably pretty good.
Okay.
But I think if you send it out before, we've got time to look over it independently, then we can just come to this meeting with comments. And if there aren't any, we can just approve it or sort of do a targeted discussion of what needs to be discussed.
That sounds good. I've got the note on 581 Harrison Street's rating. I'll go in and enter that. And if you send me the rating on 475 Valley Street, I'll include that one. Go ahead and remove those highlighted things from Page Street and send out that as a cleaned up document for review.
All right, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so I guess that brings us to informational items. I don't have any more information to share with anyone tonight. Does anyone else have information they need to share?
I think we just did a fair amount of that, of our staff
Okay.
side stuff.
I'm feeling sorry for Matt and Thomas right now.
Okay. Bob's not adding any information in the chat, so Bob's good on information tonight as well. Thank you, Bob, for your chatting. Okay, so recap for March. Things we want to discuss. We want to have a look at some comparable Windows guidelines. Purpose of that is for us to just get square with our own guidelines, so preview those, and we'll just sort of flesh out a conversation about sort of what we've done so far and how we want to continue moving forward, just so we're on the same page. And then if we need further work, we can decide that at that point. Finalize the inventory, so we'll get that out early. We'll take a look at it. That conversation can be as brief or in detailed as we need to around properties we have questions about. We will also review the letter that we're going to send out to property owners. Bob, I'm trying to recap the meeting. And then we'll also get an update from Matt about AHIP, overview of the program and what they can contribute to us. And I will also have feedback to you from council as well about their comments following our work session.
Yeah, because this attachment that we had, I found very interesting about repair and maintenance procedures. I think that that's something that is worth really, kind of sinking our teeth into, because I wasn't really sure, but I felt like I wasn't clear as to whether or not it had been proposed and never accepted, or whether this was a talking document, like a talking points document.
Mm-hmm.
So
it feels like a talking points document.
It felt like it, but it's from 2002.
It's from a long time ago. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. That was the other thing that we wanted to bring up.
That's okay. I mean, I went over this thing because I thought, whoa, okay. But is this in place, or is this what they proposed and it just never happened? Or so maybe we need to defer it till next time. I don't know, but I didn't know whether it had relevance for your town hall meeting, town council meeting, Zach, in terms of how we're approaching poor properties.
Well, I was going to suggest, Matt, to share out that document to council for them to read over. Okay. I think it would be for us going into that conversation about properties, about that.
I read that as maybe something that Wyatt Shields started when he was in my job, but he was only here for about a year after that. So it didn't really take, and then as a procedure fell away.
Yeah, there's nothing in there that we would need to vote to approve. It doesn't change any of your operations or sort of guidelines. It's just enumerating when you will take each step on to the next point. So the biggest change in procedure there that Matt and I saw was the idea that when you send the poor condition letter, you identify a specific date that ARB is going to hold a hearing on that property, and you request that the person receiving the letter appear to discuss the property on that date.
Like a summons.
A summons, essentially, right. It does not add any authority for enforcement to the board. If the person doesn't show up, or if they show up and roll their eyes, it does not give you any extra authority. We're still in the position of, well, do you want to do the repairs and hope that they pay for them? But in terms of just establishing, as we've talked about so often tonight, establishing a consistent procedure that we follow with every applicant. I think that this is
there was a little bit of kind of overlap or discretion, it seemed, between whether the ARB would do certain things or the zoning administrator. And so that's where I got a little confused, because ultimately then when it talks about the hearing and the determination by the ARB, we get into some of the sticky areas again, like we've talked about before. So that's why I felt like it was a proposal that didn't necessarily get confirmed or voted on. And that's, I just didn't know what its purpose or potential application was going to be. See what I'm saying? It references things that are already in the zoning ordinance.
And that hasn't changed.
What?
That has not changed.
Okay, but then the proposal, Matt, that comes afterwards that talks about communicating goals and the split between what the ARB's job is and the hearing that would be held and the zoning administrator's role. That's the part that I looked at and thought, well, that's going to take a little conversation, because it changes things a little bit. So anyway.
I like the idea of refreshing it with council though, because it does get into, as a board, what are your expectations of staff on how we move deliberately on this communication and enforcement? And we've worked on a lot of the same questions in the past year or so, but not put a procedure in writing.
Right.
And I think some of what it's talking about is reserving the right to delegate authority to the zoning administrator, but not necessarily changing the way that it has to be done. I read that as the ARB still does the inventory, but if for some reason they choose not to, it is within their authority to ask the zoning administrator to do it instead.
Right. And that certainly wasn't something that I felt like, we were all chomping at the bit to do.
Right.
Maybe, but maybe not. But then it was just this business about when there are disagreements or challenges and what the procedure would look like at that juncture, and whether the ARB sits at the meeting when people come to complain about what the ARB's decision has been, and then if that gets offloaded to the zoning administrator. So it gets into the weeds a bit in terms of the proposal. I didn't get nervous because it's called a proposal, but I do think that excited by after the fact, right? I mean, if we're going to start to have some conversations, that take us further along the lines of these precedent issues and consistency issues and who does what and all that kind of thing, I think it's really valuable for us to do that.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I want to share this with council is really for page 1 and 2, because I don't know how aware all members of council are about what we do and like what we're looking for. And so I think what I like about that document, even though it just restates the ordinance, it's just a little clearer. It's not, it's not surrounded by a lot of text. And I think, and so to frame these properties that we'll be discussing, this is so that they really understand both the value that we bring to what we're doing and what we're really concerned about here. Because I mentioned things like buildings are unsealed or they're at risk of structural integrity issues. I don't know if they, I don't know how much of that sinks in, in terms of
I hear
what's
you.
going on with some of these buildings. So I think really articulating that clearly, so that they also sort of understand the scope of some of the issues we're trying to address, and with images and our notes, I think that is what I'm hoping to communicate so that they can do some thinking about how we address this as a town.
Right.
And then we can get into enforcement, because in the ordinance, as we know, Ron Smith can take his hammer and tool belt down the street and, do the work himself and then charge the homeowner on so anyway.
Okay.
I'll get that out tomorrow so they have it over the weekend.
Yeah. But I agree, as we get into this, it would probably be helpful to articulate procedure for following through on these properties and things like that.
And the boundaries and the either ors and who does this and who does that. And
Although, some of our procedure is already quite good. We have like a 6 months check-in, a 1 year check-in. I think, so it'd be good to review sort of what we have been doing that I think might already be moving us down this road.
right. Well, this document doesn't go as far as some of the other things that Matt acted on, for instance, with the Meeks property that's painted red there on Warren Street. Like
What do you do when you find yourself in court trying to fight a demolition?
right. So I guess what I'm saying is maybe you have to update that a little bit just for their edification, because there's been more done than what was done in 2002. But it does all go to this idea of how we present with a unified voice and philosophy and approach, no matter who the audience is. And I really do feel, I'll just close by saying, I feel for you guys when these urgent COAs come in and we get them a day or two ahead. And then there's the understandable human desire and empathy to solve this problem for them right away. But once again, we get faced with, oh, well, this guy had the material, but this guy doesn't. Or this person gets defensive because they know that they take better care of their property than these people that have gone off and done their own thing all the time and never gotten their hands slapped. So, these are sort of the issues that I see as complicating our job. And no matter how compassionate we want to be or how rapid in our response we want to be, we set ourselves up for, but you did it with the Bruce building, or you did it with Meek's little houses on whatever that street is.
Yeah, and I've just made a note to myself here as part of this conversation with council is consistent enforcement, because there is a way in which the people who play by the rules, like, sometimes don't get their jobs approved, or are asked to go back and redo something. And the people who don't play by the rules or neglect their properties just can just coast without any recourse. So I will bring that up as a point with council, because ultimately the enforcement of these ordinances comes back to us on council, right? Like, we can enforce a fine, but council has to make sure we collect it. The ARB doesn't make sure we collect it.
Right.
So I will make a point about that, because I think that's also how we come up with a town-wide approach for addressing, especially the poor rated properties. How do we make sure that everybody's getting treated the same to improve their property?
Right.
Okay. One last thing, sorry, for information. We had a gift from Jeffrey Plank last week.
From who?
Jeffrey Plank asked me to come by and pick something up from his back porch. And what Matt has there,
it's about 40 pounds.
Is
I believe it.
Binder upon binder upon binder of old ARB applications and notes, originals that we never had.
And
so
meeting minutes and things like that.
The meeting minutes I did have digital copies of, but a lot of the applications and things in there did not exist anywhere else. So we now have a much more rich understanding of our past, if anyone's interested in coming to peruse it.
I want you to find the Barnett COA for the Bruce drugstore. I really want you to. I want you to pull that out and see what the.
I do too, honestly, because it sort of surprises me that Jeffrey would have signed off on that without a little pushback,
Yeah, but memories change over the years.
True.
Yep.
Revisionist history.
Yep.
I will see if I can find some old minutes and send those to you guys.
Don't waste too much time.
Oh, come on.
The COA. The COA. I want to see the COA on that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that information, and I'm glad we've got an increased archive now.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else to come up before the board this evening?
Good. Thank you.
And
All right.
move to adjourn.
Did you just move to adjourn?
I did.
Right.
I second that.
All in favor? Bob, I'm gonna need you to put in the chat that you're ready to leave.
Oh,
Bob, are you still there?
Yeah, you can't leave until you chat at us, Bob.
there he is.
He's in the bathtub with his bourbon.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. I just want to make note of that. I did not say that. Okay. All right. Well, I will see you all. Oh, be on the lookout for an email for a potential meeting before March to address the Barnett window COA.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Oh, I've got the end meeting.